I've always believed that fear is a lie we tell ourselves. A chemical misfire. A flicker of primitive instinct that evolution hadn't stamped out yet. That was before Black Hollow. Before the trees closed around me like ribs of a rotting god, before the air thickened into silence, before I watched my best friend vanish before my eyes, without sound, without light, as if the forest simply exhaled and took him. Let me go back to where it started. It was early October, and the Appalachians were on fire with color. Crimson leaves bled across the branches, gold like sunlit death, and the underbrush whispered things when the wind blew just right. There were 5 of us, me, my best friend Tyler, his sister Marianne, her boyfriend Richie, and Alex, the quiet guy who barely said 2 words the entire drive. We were headed to Black Hollow, a place spoken about in online forums with phrases like, no GPS signal, weird time loss, and, don't go alone. Exactly the kind of place we'd make fun of in a group chat but couldn't resist checking out once Richie suggested it for a weekend camping trip. Tyler laughed the whole way up the mountain, chewing sunflower seeds and tossing the shells out the window. He had that kind of fearless charm, like he thought the world would fold around him, make room for his swagger. I envied him for that. The deeper we drove, the fewer signs we saw. First, the road lost its lines. Then the road lost its asphalt. Then the road lost everything. We stopped the car when the forest swallowed the trail whole. This is it, Richie said, checking his phone and frowning. We're off map now. Marianne climbed out and stretched, looking around with skepticism. So, we're just camping in the woods where people vanish and nobody can call for help. Tyler grinned. Exactly. Come on, it'll be fun. We packed light, just enough for one night, tents, flashlights, food, booze, and one handgun that Richie brought, just in case. We walked until the sun started to bleed through the trees. That's not poetic. It literally bled. I remember thinking it looked like blood seeping down bark, not light. The canopy filtered it into rust-colored veins across the forest floor. Alex stopped walking suddenly. I remember it clearly. He looked up and said in a low, cold voice, "Do you hear that?" We all paused. Nothing. No birds, no wind, no bugs. Just the sound of our breathing and the faint crunch of our boots on damp leaves. Probably just, I started, but stopped. There was something wrong with the quiet. It wasn't absence of sound. It was suppression. Like something was pushing down on the air around us, choking the forest's voice into silence. Richie gave a short laugh. Creepy. I like it. Let's pitch camp here. We didn't argue. None of us said it, but we wanted a fire going before the dark settled in. The fire flickered weakly. The wood didn't want to burn. It hissed and spat and smoked, but it didn't blaze. Tyler got it going eventually, using too much lighter fluid, and we passed around drinks in paper cups as shadows grew long and cold. That was the last time I remember feeling remotely human. Later that night I woke to screaming. I shot up, heart slamming in my chest, and scrambled out of the tent. Tyler was already outside, holding a flashlight, swinging it in wide arcs. Did you hear that? He hissed. Marianne and Richie came stumbling out next. Alex was gone. The scream had come from deeper in the woods. But now there was only silence again. That awful, thick, dead silence that felt like a vacuum. I think it was Alex, Marianne said. It sounded like him. We argued for a while. Tyler wanted to go look. Marianne wanted to wait till morning. Richie loaded the gun and said he'd go with Tyler if we didn't wait too long. I was the tiebreaker. I said we go. We couldn't leave Alex out there. So we went. Flashlights cut through the black like knives through tar. The trees were closer now, or maybe it just felt that way. I kept feeling like they were leaning inward, listening. No one said it, but I could see it on their faces. We weren't walking in a straight line anymore. The path kept folding, looping, changing direction. The underbrush moved when we weren't looking. One time I turned back and saw no trail at all, just wall-to-wall bark. Then we found something. Not Alex. Something else. It looked like a tree had been hollowed out. Not naturally, carved, like by human hands, but not with any tool I recognized. It wasn't round. It was jagged, malformed. Something wet lined the inside. Tyler shone his light inside. Jesus, he whispered. It wasn't a tree. It was a shrine. Bones inside. Small ones, animals, I think. Maybe. A circle of string tied them together, with strips of something leathery holding them in place. The smell hit us a second later, copper and rot. Then Tyler screamed. I spun, flashlight catching his face. He was staring into the dark, backing up. I saw something, he gasped. In the trees. Eyes. Right there, we all turned. Nothing. Just trees. But the silence had shifted. It wasn't still anymore. It was watching. We ran back to camp. It took us hours, though it should have taken minutes. When we got there, all 3 tents were gone. Not torn. Not scattered. Gone. The fire pit still smoldered. Our bags were there. But no tents. No Alex. Marianne lost it. She started crying, pacing in circles, repeating Alex's name. That's when we noticed something else. Our footprints. They were all around the fire pit. Hundreds of them. Ours. But more than should have been. Too many. Like we'd been circling the fire again and again and again, but none of us had. I checked my phone. It was dead. All of them were. No signal. Dead. Batteries drained to 0. Then the whispering started. At first, I thought it was wind. But it was words. Low, broken, layered voices. Like dozens whispering through shredded throats. Richie pointed the gun into the woods, spinning. Who's there? The voices stopped. Tyler grabbed my arm. We have to go. Now. We didn't sleep that night. We sat in a circle, backs to the fire, Richie with the gun in his lap, Marianne curled up in Tyler's jacket, and me just watching the trees. I kept thinking, what if the trees moved just a little closer every time I blinked? Morning there was no sunrise. Not really. Just a dim gray that slowly filtered into the woods like fog. We decided to hike out. Forget Alex. Get help. Come back with police. That's what we told ourselves. But the forest had other plans. No matter which way we walked, we always came back to the same clearing. The fire pit. The smoldering circle. Once, it took us 6 hours. Another time, 20 minutes. The sun never rose higher. The sky never changed. At some point, Richie snapped. He started yelling, firing the gun into the trees, screaming for the forest to let us go. He fired all 6 shots. The noise echoed once. Then silence fell like a hammer. That's when we heard it. A voice. Alex's voice. Calling from the trees. Guys, help me, it sounded wrong. Hollow. Like a recording played backward. Richie started crying. He dropped the gun. The rest of us just stood there, frozen. And then Alex walked out of the woods. But it wasn't him. It looked like him. Same jacket, same hair. But his eyes were wrong. All pupil. No color. No shine. And his mouth didn't move when he spoke. Guys, help me, we ran. We didn't stop. We didn't look back. We didn't stop running until our legs gave out. Somewhere in the blur of trees and shadows, we lost Richie. It happened so fast I didn't even hear a sound. One moment he was right behind me, panting, swearing, shoving branches out of his way. The next, I turned, and he was gone. Just gone. No cry for help. No crash in the underbrush. Like he'd been lifted, peeled out of existence by invisible fingers. We screamed his name. Tyler doubled back for a few steps, but the forest seemed to darken the moment he did. I grabbed his arm, begged him to come back. I could feel it then, if we split up, we'd die. Marianne was sobbing so hard she was dry heaving, clutching my jacket like it was the only solid thing in the world. Her lips were cracked, and her pupils looked too wide. I had to be strong for her. For both of them. But I was lying to myself. I was falling apart. Inside, my brain was folding in on itself like origami, trying to make sense of something that refused to obey logic. We pressed on through the woods. Not to escape. That illusion had been stripped from us. We just wanted to move. Sitting still made it worse. At some point, we found the river. It was black. Not from depth, literally black. Like oil. It moved like water, bubbling and rippling, but it didn't reflect light. When I pointed the flashlight at it, the beam just died on its surface like it was being eaten. Marianne sat down by the shore, too exhausted to cry anymore. Tyler paced. I wanted to believe it was real water. I wanted to believe we could follow it downstream and maybe find a road. But I knew better. Everything in this forest was wrong. Bent at some invisible angle we couldn't perceive. That's when we heard the clicking. It started low. Subtle. Like a beetle's chittering deep in the bark. Then it spread, faster, louder, echoing through the trees like bones being snapped in rhythm. We backed away from the river. Click. Click. Click 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 click, and then it stopped. We didn't know where to look. It was like the forest was all throat, and we were in the mouth. Climb the trees, Tyler said suddenly. We get up. It can't follow us up. I don't think that's smart, I said, even as I started scanning for a low branch. What if it's in the trees? Marianne stared at the ground. I think it is the trees. We didn't get to debate. Something came out of the river. I didn't see it clearly. Just a ripple, a form rising, tall, too tall, with too many joints, dragging something slick and fibrous behind it. We ran. Again. Always running. The clicking chased us. And then, we saw lights. Not natural lights, lanterns. Real lanterns, glowing faint yellow through the trees. We stumbled toward them, half drunk with exhaustion and fear. The lights led to a structure. A cabin. Rotted wood, sagging roof, but standing. Real. Solid. Something that didn't belong to the forest. We didn't knock. We barreled inside and slammed the door behind us. Tyler pushed a bookshelf against it. Marianne collapsed onto the floor, rocking back and forth. It's not real. It's not real. It's not real. I lit a lantern. It hissed softly, throwing long shadows on the walls. Dust danced in the air like spores. And for the first time in what felt like days, I felt something almost like hope. Then I saw the walls. Symbols. Carved deep into the wood. All along the inside, even the ceiling. Spirals, circles within circles, jagged slashes intersecting through crude stick figure shapes. One of them had no head. Another had too many. What the hell is this place? I whispered. Tyler was reading something. A journal, left on a table in the corner. It was bound in leather so old it cracked like bark. The pages were yellow, nearly brittle. He read aloud, Day 17. They don't sleep. Not like we do. They mimic. They take. They become. Day 23. It took my voice. I heard it in the trees, speaking like me. I saw myself from outside the window. Day 29. Fire doesn't hurt them. Names don't stop them. Faith is meaningless here. Day 35. I am already dead. I just haven't stopped moving yet. He flipped more pages, hands shaking. Day 41. The forest doesn't grow. It consumes. It remembers every footprint. It listens to your heartbeat. The deeper you go, the more it becomes you. Then, the last page. No date. Just a smear of blood and one line written in shaky script, it wore her skin. But it had too many teeth. We didn't speak for a long time. Outside, the clicking had stopped. The silence returned. But something about it had changed. It was heavier. Watching. Listening. I could feel the pressure of it pushing against the cabin walls. Marianne spoke first. Do you think this place is safe? No, I said. But it's the only thing we've got. Tyler stood up suddenly, alert. Where's the gun? It was gone. We tore through the room. Through our bags. Nothing. None of us had moved it. None of us had left the cabin. Then we noticed something else. The door. Still closed. Still barricaded. But on the inside, scratch marks. Long, deep, uneven gouges trailing down from the top of the door. From the inside. And just above the handle, something had been scrawled in charcoal, Let me back in. Marianne began to cry again, silently this time. Then the lantern flickered. Just for a second. When it came back up, Tyler was staring at me. No. Not at me. Behind me. I turned. There was a man in the corner. Just standing there. Silent. Watching us. He wasn't there a second ago. He wore Alex's jacket. Richie's boots. But his face wasn't a face. Just skin. Stretched and blank. Like clay waiting to be carved. Then it smiled. No mouth. No lips. Just parted skin splitting across where the mouth should be. Who are you? I yelled, backing away. It didn't speak. It stepped forward, one jerky, twitching motion at a time. Tyler grabbed a chair and hurled it. The thing didn't flinch. The chair passed right through it. Then the light went out. I don't remember screaming. I don't remember blacking out. But when I woke, the cabin was empty. No Tyler. No Marianne. The lantern was cold. The door was open. And in the dirt outside, 3 sets of footprints led away from the cabin, but only one came back. The footprints outside the cabin. 3 led away. 1 came back. Mine. I stared at them for a long time, my mind refusing to process what it meant. Tyler and Marianne were gone. Vanished into the trees like Alex and Richie. And I was the only one who returned, though I didn't remember it. I had no memory of coming back to the cabin. Just darkness, and then waking alone. That's when the idea hit me. What if I hadn't come back? What if I never left? What if something else walked back in my body and left me behind in the dark? I laughed. I couldn't help it. Just a short, dry, broken sound that made the skin on my neck crawl. I had to move. Sitting still in Black Hollow was a death sentence. I took my pack and stepped outside. The forest greeted me like a predator pretending not to notice its prey. Still. Watching. Too still. Too quiet. I started walking. I didn't know where to go, but I followed the footprints. Not the single set that came back, but the other two. The ones that led away. Marianne and Tyler had gone this way. Maybe I could find them. Or what was left of them. For the first hour, nothing happened. Just endless trees. No path. No sun. Just that dull gray sky like the inside of a skull. Then I found the clothes. Not scattered. Not torn. Arranged. Tyler's hoodie, folded and placed over a flat rock. Marianne's scarf, tied into the crook of a tree branch like a noose. I called their names, but my voice sounded small. Ethan. And then. A voice answered. Not with words. Just my own voice, played back at me. Laughing. That laugh I made earlier. That dry, dead laugh. It echoed through the trees, wrong and warped, like someone dragging a needle across a record. Higher pitched. Mocking. Then, footsteps. Coming closer. I ran. No shame. No plan. Just instinct. My legs burned. My lungs ached. The forest twisted with every blink. Trees in new positions, branches bending when they shouldn't, the smell of meat hanging in the air like mist. I didn't stop until I found the church. Yeah. A church. In the middle of nowhere. It rose out of the earth like a tumor. Black wood. No windows. Crosses carved upside down into the door. The bell tower leaned slightly, and there was a nest of bones where the bell should have been. Not just animals. Human ones. I opened the door because of course I did. Inside, the pews were shattered. The pulpit was cracked. And the altar. The altar was covered in skin. Pale. Human. Nailed flat. Stretched taut. And on the wall behind it, in blood, wearing the flesh is how it learns. I staggered back, gagging. Behind me, something scraped the floor. I spun. One of the pews had moved. Nothing was there. But I heard the clicking again. Faint. Distant. But getting closer. I ran up to the pulpit. Behind it, a trapdoor. I didn't think. I just pulled it open and dropped down. It was pitch black. I landed on something wet. I didn't want to know what it was. I fumbled for my flashlight. The beam flickered to life, weak but enough to see, a tunnel. Crude. Dug by hand or worse. It sloped down and curved away from the church. I moved forward, crouched low, hands scraping the walls. Every few feet, I passed carvings. People. Stick-figure people with wide mouths and no eyes. Sometimes, I swear they moved. Just a twitch. A ripple in the wall. Then, the whispers began again. But not around me. Inside me. Words that weren't words. Ideas. Suggestions. Feelings like drowning in warm mud. Thoughts that weren't mine. I kept going. What else could I do? Eventually, the tunnel opened into a chamber. And in that chamber, I found Marianne. She was sitting on a mound of what I thought were roots. Until they moved. It wasn't roots. It was them. Bodies. Twisted. Gnarled. Bound together with bark and sinew. Still breathing. And they all had her face. Dozens of faces. All hers. Some with eyes. Some without. All whispering. She looked up at me with red-rimmed eyes. "You shouldn't have come here," she said. I staggered back. Marianne. Is that really you? She shook her head slowly. I was. Once. But I stayed too long. It remembered me. Now it makes copies. It doesn't know how to forget. I took a step closer. Where's Tyler? Her lips trembled. It's wearing him now. What? What do you mean? You'll see. And then, from the other side of the chamber, a figure stepped out of the shadows. It looked like Tyler. Until it didn't. The face was too long. The smile stretched too wide. The teeth never ended. I remember you, it said. The voice was close. Almost right. But hollow. Rehearsed. Like a puppet trying to perform grief. Tyler's gone, Marianne said behind me. It's learning you now. I backed away, flashlight shaking in my grip. Why? I whispered. Why is it doing this? Marianne's voice was soft. Barely a breath. Because it was alone. For so long. It wants to be people again. It wants to be real. The thing wearing Tyler's face lunged. I turned and ran, not looking back, not caring if it chased me, because something worse happened. The tunnel started whispering. All the voices at once. Alex. Richie. Tyler. Me. Laughter. Screams. Questions. Why did you leave me? Help me. You already died. I clawed my way back up the shaft. Into the church. It was night again. Or maybe it had always been. Outside, the forest was breathing. The trees moved with each breath, inhaling and exhaling as one. And in the distance, I saw lights. Not lanterns this time. Campfires. Dozens of them. And around them. People. Or the idea of people. They turned to face me in perfect unison. Smiling. Faces too smooth. Too symmetrical. Like masks molded from memory. And then they spoke. All at once. In my voice. You're almost ready. That chorus of my voice, dozens of versions, pitch perfect but hollow, shattered something inside me. My knees buckled. I dropped to the floorboards of the church and stared through the doorway at those firelit figures in the distance. They didn't move. Not yet. Just stared. Every face identical. Every smile impossibly wide. I clutched the edge of the pulpit, choking on dry air that smelled like rot and wet soil. My hands were shaking so hard I could barely hold my flashlight. You're almost ready. Ready for what? To join them? To become one of those masks? My mind reeled with fragments, Alex disappearing into the trees without a sound. Richie vanishing mid-run. The mimic in the cabin. Marianne in the root chamber. And Tyler, or what wore him, speaking in that puppet voice. The thing in the forest didn't just kill. It absorbed. It mimicked. It became. I backed away from the door. But I didn't close it. Some instinct whispered to me. Don't pretend it's not watching. The moment I acknowledged its presence, something in the forest stirred. I could feel the gaze settle on me like a weight. I climbed back into the pulpit. Not for sanctuary. For height. For perspective. And that's when I saw the carvings again. The church's walls were covered with the same symbols I'd seen in the cabin. Spirals, jagged lines, crude humanoid shapes. But here, they were older. More elaborate. More desperate. And one stood out above all the others, etched behind the altar, a massive eye, split down the center, its iris filled with teeth. Below it, in that same scrawled, manic writing, "It sees to become." My throat tightened. The fires outside flickered. The others, those not people, took one step forward. I turned and ran from the church. The forest didn't resist. This time, it welcomed me. The trees parted with a creaking groan. The path beneath my feet smoothed. For the first time, I felt like I was being guided. And I followed. I don't know why. Maybe part of me had already given up. Or maybe I wanted to understand before I died. The path led me to a clearing. Perfectly round. Dead center, a stone well, ancient and crumbling. The air here was thicker. Heavier. I approached the well, heartbeat pounding. Inside, nothing but blackness. Not even the beam of my flashlight could pierce it. It just vanished into the void like it had hit a curtain. Carved into the edge of the stone, in that same jagged hand, the first hollow. Behind me, the trees closed in. One by one, the knot people emerged from the woods, forming a silent ring around the clearing. I turned slowly, watching them. None moved. All still smiling. And then, a new voice. Clear. Calm. Close. You returned. I spun. There stood Tyler. Or the thing that wore him. His face looked more human now. Less distorted. The lines were sharper. His eyes, nearly right. But still too still. You're close, he said. The hollow remembers you. It likes your shape. Your pain. I shook my head. Give them back, I said, voice breaking. Give me Tyler. Richie. Marianne. All of them. It tilted its head. We don't take. We become. They gave themselves. Like you will. I won't. You already have. You let go when you laughed. Remember? I staggered back. That laugh, back in the cabin. That moment of crack, when I lost grip. The forest had felt it. You invited us in, it said, stepping closer. You showed us how to wear you. I wanted to run. But I couldn't move. The well behind me hummed. The others in the ring began to vibrate. Not visibly, but like their presence buzzed through the ground. The air shimmered. My ears rang. I fell to my knees. The world tilted. And then, darkness. But not sleep. I could still feel. The sensation of bark against skin. The pressure of teeth behind my eyes. The echo of footsteps that weren't mine. And voices. A chorus. Hundreds. All overlapping. Some familiar. Some not. Don't fight. It's easier this way. You'll be safe in us. We remember for you. And deep beneath them all. A voice like the creaking of 1,000 trees shifting at once, welcome back. I don't know how long I was under. When I awoke, I was lying in the middle of the clearing, alone. The well was gone. So were the fires. So were they. Just forest now. Still. Whispering. I stood slowly. My body felt wrong. Like a suit worn too long. My skin itched. My teeth felt loose. I found a stream nearby. Clear water, reflecting the sky. I looked down into it. And what I saw. It was me. But not. My eyes weren't quite centered. My smile hovered on my face like it wasn't sure it belonged. And behind my pupils. Something looked out. Watching. Learning. Becoming. I stared at my reflection in the water for a long time. It blinked when I blinked. Tilted its head when I did. But I knew, it wasn't just mimicking. It was watching. Through me. There was something behind my eyes now. Something quiet. Patient. Waiting. Waiting for me to stop fighting. The forest didn't attack anymore. No clicking. No flickers of movement just out of sight. It had stopped hunting. Because it thought it had me. But it didn't. Not yet. I stood up from the stream and turned away from the water. I didn't want to look at that face anymore. I didn't want to see how easily it could take me. I had to keep moving. Had to keep reminding myself what I was. I am me. I am not hollow. I wandered for what felt like hours. No more screams. No more illusions. Just endless, pulsing forest. Everything began to blur, roots, leaves, moss, bark, all smeared into one green-gray haze. The trees leaned in as I passed, groaning softly, like they were tired of waiting for me to break. That's when I saw the sign. Not a trail marker. Not a wooden post. It was a ribcage. Human, I think. Jammed into the dirt like a signpost, its spine still attached, vertebrae strung together with black, bark-like tissue. Tied to it, a photograph. One of those old Polaroids. I picked it up with shaking hands. It was blurry, water-damaged. But I could make out a group of people standing near a campfire. One of them looked exactly like me. And someone had scrawled on the bottom, in smeared ink, Day 4, he's not himself anymore. The image began to fade in my hand. Literally. The longer I held it, the paler it became, like the forest was erasing the memory. I shoved it in my pack before it vanished completely. Then I saw the others. More signposts scattered through the trees. Bones, bark sculptures, twisted branches bent into human shapes. Each marked with photos, notes, scraps of clothing. One had Alex's beanie tied to it. Another had a slip of paper with handwriting I recognized as Richie's. Can't trust my voice anymore. It keeps talking when I don't. I couldn't breathe. I knelt by one effigy and reached for the photo hanging from its neck. It was Marianne. Alive. Smiling. With something just behind her, in the woods. Blurred and huge. Too many arms. I dropped it. Snap. A twig cracked behind me. I turned slowly. A girl stood there. Small. Maybe 10 years old. Long, matted hair. Bare feet. Her eyes were white. Not milky, not blind, just white. Like bone. No pupils. She tilted her head. "You're not done," she said. Her voice echoed, wrong in the space around us. "What do you mean?" I asked. She blinked slowly. "It's not you it wants." "Not really. It wants what's left of you." I didn't understand. She stepped closer, her movement stiff, puppet-like. "It doesn't care about flesh. It wants memory. Identity. Story. It's making its own history out of stolen people." I backed away. "Who are you?" She smiled. "I was the first." And then, her skin peeled. Like paper catching fire, she burned away, quiet, clean, until nothing was left but a scattering of white ash. The forest sighed. And then it showed me where to go. The path was straight. Too straight. Unnatural. At the end of it, a tree. But not like the others. This one was dead. Black bark. Split down the center. Hollowed out completely, like a gaping wound in the world. The air around it hummed with something old and electric. My flashlight flickered and died. I stepped closer. On the bark, scratched over and over in deep, erratic gouges, "I remember me. I remember me. I remember me." I touched the bark. And I remembered everything. The laughter. The screaming. The way Alex's mouth had stretched too wide before he vanished. The thing wearing Richie's skin as a cloak, dragging itself across the forest floor like it was still learning how to walk. Marianne's voice, singing lullabies in the wrong language from beneath the earth. Tyler's hand, grabbing mine before he melted into ash. And my own face, smiling at me from every tree trunk, every pool of water, every whispering shadow. I collapsed to my knees. The tree pulsed. From within it, something stepped forward. A shape. Not human. Not anymore. But it wore all of us. Faces layered like masks. Arms too long. A body stitched from bark, bone, and memory. A chorus of voices speaking at once. We are hollow. It stepped closer. We are your end. We are your beginning. I stood. Somehow. My voice was small. Broken. But still mine. No, I whispered. You're just the silence left behind. It paused. We are what remains. But you're not me. Then I did something I don't fully remember. I reached inside my bag. Pulled out the Polaroid. The one with my real friends. And I tore it in half. The hollow screamed. A sound like all the trees in the world shattering at once. The faces on its body began to melt, sliding off like wet clay. The arms collapsed. The eyes turned to ash. I don't know what that photo was. A tether, maybe. A memory they couldn't erase. A truth stronger than the lie the forest wanted to make of me. But when I tore it, something broke. The tree cracked open. Light poured from within. Not bright. Not warm. Just real. When I woke up, I was lying at the edge of the old trailhead. Black hollow behind me. The sun was rising. Real sun. I staggered to my feet. My pack was still on my back. My clothes were torn and dirty, but I was alive. And alone. The search and rescue teams never found any of the others. No bodies. No camps. Nothing but whispers in the trees. They said we must have gotten lost. Turned around. Maybe the others fell into a ravine. Maybe I hit my head and imagined things. I let them think that. But I know the truth. I know what's still in that forest. I see it sometimes in mirrors. In photos that fade too fast. In voices that aren't mine speaking just behind the sound of the wind. The hollow is patient. It remembers everyone who enters. And one day, when I'm tired, when I laugh the wrong way again, it'll come for me. And this time, I won't come back. 2 weeks later, I went back. I didn't want to. But I didn't have a choice. Because I woke up one morning with dirt under my fingernails, moss between my toes, and bark growing out of my palm. It pulsed. With every beat, I saw them again, faces flickering in the dark behind my eyelids. Richie. Marianne. Alex. Tyler. And me. The other me. The copy. Grinning with that empty smile, waiting for me to stop resisting. I burned the photo I had saved. I thought it might sever the connection. But it only made it stronger. That night, I dreamed in whispers. Not words, memories. Not mine. Its. Black Hollow was waiting for me. The trailhead had changed. No sign. No markers. Just a thin path winding into the woods like a scar. The wind didn't blow. The air tasted like rust. And the trees, they weren't just trees anymore. They watched. I stepped past the threshold. And the forest sighed. Like it had been holding its breath since I left. I followed no path. But my feet knew where to go. The first time, I wandered lost. Confused. Prey. This time, I was invited. I walked for hours. Or minutes. Time bends in Black Hollow. Eventually, I came to a clearing I'd never seen before. The trees here were dead, split down the middle, hollowed like flutes. They whistled when the air moved, soft, haunting tones like a funeral song. In the center stood the root. That's what I called it. It wasn't a tree. It was a nexus. A knot of black wood and veins, pulsing like a heart, rooted deep into the soil and webbed into the sky. From its bark grew faces. Thousands. Some screaming. Some whispering. Some singing. I heard my mother's voice. My first-grade teacher. The girl I kissed once in high school, who moved away the next week and never came back. The hollow had them all. Not just the people I lost in the forest, it had everything I'd ever forgotten. Every moment I'd let go. It fed on what we discarded. It grew on what we lost. I approached the root. One of the faces opened its eyes. Tyler. He didn't speak, but his expression begged me not to come closer. Another face opened, Marianne. Her mouth moved, but no sound came. Then, mine. Not smiling. Just staring. And then it whispered, "We're waiting." I reached out and touched the bark. Instantly, it dragged me inside. No pain. No impact. Just one moment standing. The next, falling through memory. I was 5 years old, in my childhood bedroom. Rain on the window. My stuffed rabbit on the floor. But the colors were wrong, too pale, like bleached film. I turned to leave, and the door creaked open. Tyler stood there. But he was 13, the age he'd been when we first met. He looked at me and said, "You've always been here." The walls peeled away. Now I was 15, hiding in the school bathroom, trying not to cry after screwing up a presentation. In the mirror, my reflection grinned. It wasn't me. It never had been. I ran. The world shattered. Now I stood in the clearing again, but the sky above was a mirror. And in the mirror, I was walking backwards into the forest, smiling. Always smiling. The hollow wasn't just feeding on me. It was replacing me. Piece by piece. It was becoming me through every forgotten moment. Every lost time. Every fractured memory. I felt it growing inside me like mold, subtle, slow, patient. And I knew what I had to do. There was a knife in my pack. Just a cheap camping blade. I pulled it out. Cut into my forearm. Deep enough to see white. The hollow screamed. The faces on the root twisted, writhing in agony. I carved into the skin again, this time with purpose. A symbol. The one I'd seen in the church, the split eye. My blood hit the dirt and the ground cracked. Light poured from the wound in the earth. The hollow shrieked. A sound made of grief and hunger and rage. The faces began to burn. Not with fire, with truth. Flashes of what I had forgotten, rejected, buried. The smell of my father's cigarettes. The first dog I ever had. The time I lied to Tyler and said I was okay when I wasn't. The hollow choked on it all. I stepped into the crack. The world folded. And I was underneath. Beneath the forest. Beneath memory. Beneath the skin of the world. There was no sky. Only a vast, shifting ceiling of teeth and eyes and roots. The hollow was there. Its true form. A creature of memory. A parasite of identity. A shape made of everything we leave behind. And it was afraid. Because I remembered me. I remembered who I was. Even the parts one didn't want. Especially those. And the hollow couldn't wear that. It couldn't digest truth. So I gave it everything. I opened myself fully. Every scar. Every regret. Every shameful thing I buried. And it screamed. The ceiling shattered. Light poured in. And the hollow burned. Not with fire. With me. When I woke, I was lying in the ash. Not forest ash. Memory ash. Bits of bark and bone and paper-thin faces blowing on the wind like dead leaves. Black Hollow was silent. Truly silent. No whispers. No laughter. No mimicry. Just me. And the weight of what I remembered. I walked out. Past the bones. Past the mirror pools. Past the split tree. Out into the real world. No one came for me this time. No helicopters. No search parties. Just sun. And breath. It's been months. I've changed. There's a streak of white in my hair now. My eyes don't focus quite right in mirrors. Sometimes my voice echoes before I speak. But I'm still here. Because I remembered. And memory is the one thing the hollow can't fake. Still. I feel it sometimes. At night. In dreams. When I forget a name. Or where I left my keys. In those empty little gaps. I hear it whisper. Let me help you forget. But I don't. Not anymore. I stayed quiet about Black Hollow for weeks. Not because I wanted to. But because no one would believe me. So I told myself it was over. I'd won. I'd remembered enough to keep the hollow out. I was scarred, yes, but free. Then I saw her. At the grocery store. A woman in a red hoodie, walking down the frozen aisle. Something about the way she moved. Mechanical. Like her limbs were a beat too slow. Like she was remembering how to be human. She passed me without a glance. But as she turned the corner, I saw her reflection in the freezer door. She was smiling. Too wide. Too still. My blood ran cold. I followed. She vanished around the corner. When I turned it, nothing. Just a trail of melting frost in the shape of bare feet. That night, I dug up everything I could find. Old trail maps. Obscure ranger reports. Forgotten newspaper clippings from towns near the hollow. A pattern emerged. Disappearances. All over the region. Never more than one or two at a time. No one connected them because the forest moved. The boundaries shifted. The hollow had been spreading. Worse still, I found a name. Landon Price. A local amateur historian who disappeared 10 years ago. Before he vanished, he wrote blog posts about conscious forests, memory traps, something he called eco-parasites. I found his final post, archived on a dead website. It's not a forest. It's a story. A recursive, self-aware memory network that steals identities and uses them to bait others. It doesn't kill. It rewrites. At the bottom, an image, a tree. Black bark. Split down the middle. Just like the one I saw. Only this one was growing out of a suburban sidewalk. I went to his house. It was still listed under his name, uninhabited. Boards on the windows. Chain on the front gate. I broke in. The air inside was wet. Like the whole house had been soaked in breath. Walls covered in notes, symbols, photos. Faces scratched out. Pages filled with the phrase, "If I forget, it takes my place." In the center of the living room, a chair facing a broken TV. On the screen, static. But as I approached, a face began to form in the snow. My face. And it spoke, "You left the door open." I spun. Behind me, Landon Price stood. Or, what was left of him. His face was smeared. Glitching. Like a video skipping frames. One eye blinked, the other stayed frozen. His smile twitched in and out of place. He tilted his head. How much did you forget, really? I stepped back. What are you? He laughed, 1,000 voices in one. You think it ends when you leave the forest. The forest leaves with you. He reached into his chest. And pulled out a piece of me. Literally, a memory. Tyler's laugh. I hadn't thought about it in days. Weeks. But now I couldn't. It was gone. Swallowed. The hollow had taken it, even here. Even now. Every time you forget something, Landon whispered, a little more of you stays behind. And I realized the truth, Black Hollow wasn't just a place. It was everywhere. Inside our forgetfulness. In the voids between who we are and who we were. It didn't need to drag you into the woods anymore. You brought it with you the moment you let go of a memory. I ran. Out the door. Through the streets. I didn't stop until I got home. But I wasn't alone. I never had been. Because the more I thought about what I'd lost, the more I realized I couldn't trust what I remembered. What if I'd already been replaced? What if the me who came back wasn't me at all? I stood in the bathroom, staring into the mirror. The lights flickered. My reflection smiled before I did. That night, I wrote down everything I could. Pages of memories. Things I refused to forget. My first pet. The way Tyler's voice cracked when he told a joke. The smell of firewood in Alex's jacket. Every detail. Because I knew, if I lost those, I'd be next. And I think that's what happened to Landon. He fought too long. And forgot too much. Until he was just an echo in a rotting house. It's been happening more. I see them in crowds. People who move like mannequins. Whose reflections don't match their steps. Whose voices sound off, like a recording played at the wrong speed. They're not hollow yet. But they're close. The hollow doesn't attack with claws or teeth. It waits. Waits for you to forget your dog's name. The street you grew up on. The shape of your best friend's laugh. It waits. And then it wears you. I still have the knife. The one I used in the forest. Some nights, I hold it over my arm. Not to cut. To remind. To feel. Pain is real. Pain is proof. But even pain fades. Eventually. And when it does, I'll hear it again. The whisper in the dark. Let me hold that for you. And I don't know if I'll say no next time. Because remembering hurts. But forgetting. Forgetting is death. I started taking pictures. Everything I could. Faces. Rooms. My hands. My eyes. Because the hollow eats memory, but it can't photograph a lie. Not yet. At least, I don't think it can. I pinned the photos to the walls. Filled notebooks with timelines. Recorded voice memos every hour. Set alarms to remind myself who I am. It worked, for a while. Until I found a picture I didn't remember taking. A man in a subway car. Pale skin. Head tilted. Hands folded too neatly. His eyes were all wrong, milky, like fogged glass. The timestamp said 2:13 a.m., 3 days ago. I was asleep then. Or thought I was. But the image was in my camera roll. Worse, when I looked again. He was gone from the picture. Only the seat remained. Empty. Stained. The hollow had followed me into the city. I started seeing them. Everywhere. At the gas station, a woman smiling at a broken ATM, her lips moving like she was trying to remember a joke. In the library. A man staring at an empty book for an hour, not turning a single page. At the cafe, a child laughing at nothing, eyes blank, hands twitching like he was tracing something invisible. They were here. Wearing us. Mimicking. Waiting. I couldn't tell how many. How far the forest had spread. Or if it was even a forest anymore. I tried warning people. Friends. Co-workers. A stranger on the train. They laughed. Or ignored me. Or got scared. And later, sometimes days, sometimes hours, I'd see them again. Same smile. Same glaze in their eyes. Different now. Like someone had taken their skin and worn it backward. I called Marianne's number again. Still disconnected. But one night it rang. 3 times. Then a voice picked up. It whispered, "Who are you remembering?" I hung up. But the next day, I couldn't remember her face. Just her name. And even that sounded wrong in my mouth, like it didn't belong to anyone anymore. I went back to Landon Price's house. Or what was left of it. It had burned down. Completely. No news story. No report. Like it had never existed. But I found something in the ash. A scorched notebook, mostly illegible. Except for one page, the hollow is a contagion of forgetting. It doesn't take everything. It leaves the shell, the motions. You'll still go to work. Still eat. Still sleep. But you'll stop calling your sister. You'll forget your favorite song. You'll look in the mirror and wonder why you feel so thin, even though you haven't lost weight. You'll be haunted, but you won't know by what. That's when it has you. I copied the page by hand. Burned the original. No more risks. I had a plan now. I wouldn't just remember. I'd make others remember. I printed flyers. "Have you forgotten something important lately? Call me." I posted them all over the city. Desperation made me reckless. But I needed someone to remember with me. Someone still human. 2 people called. The first was a woman named Lee. She said she kept waking up in rooms she didn't recognize, even though they were in her apartment. Her cat stared at corners that didn't exist. She couldn't remember her own birthday. The second was a man named Jonas. He didn't speak at first. Just breathed, fast and wet. Then he whispered, "They're not replacing us. They're recycling us." I asked what he meant. He said, "They take the stories we forget. They wear them. Over and over. That's why they glitch. Because the lies overlap. Then, check the underpass on 3rd and Elm. At night. You'll see." He hung up. I didn't sleep that night. The underpass was quiet. 1:07 a.m. I crouched behind a concrete pillar, watching. And I saw them. 7 figures. Standing perfectly still in the center of the tunnel. Some wore business suits. Some were barefoot. One had no face. Just a flat plate of skin, with faint eye-shaped indentations. They didn't move. Until the wind blew through the tunnel. Then they all turned to face the same direction. Me. I ran. Didn't look back. Not because I was afraid of what I'd see. But because part of me wanted to join them. Somewhere inside, the hollow was whispering, "Don't you want to rest? Just forget." I stayed awake for 3 straight days. Fought sleep like it was death. Because in sleep, we dream. And in dreams, the hollow feeds. But on the 3rd day, I cracked. Just a short nap, I thought. Just a moment. I woke up 6 hours later. And the photos on my wall were gone. The notebooks too. All replaced with blank pages. My phone was filled with pictures of myself, sleeping. From angles I couldn't have taken. And my voice memos. Every one of them ended with, "I remember me. I remember," static. It's inside now. Not fully. But close. I forget little things. Where I parked. What my brother's laugh sounds like. How it felt to hold my grandmother's hand at the hospital before she passed. Each time something slips, I feel the hollow stretch. A little more room in my head. A little less me. I write to hold the line. This story, our story, is my tether. As long as I write, I remember. As long as I remember, I'm still me. But Zoppy, if you're reading this, if you ever walk past someone whose smile holds just a little too long, if you blink and a face seems to reset, if you wake and forget what your favorite song used to be, then listen carefully. Not to the world. To yourself. And ask, who am I forgetting? Because the hollow never stops. It only waits. I didn't plan to go back. I wanted to fight from here, among people, in the city, surrounded by noise and concrete and other minds. But then I woke up one morning, and the world was too quiet. Not silent, just emptier. I walked the streets, and the colors seemed thinner. Washed out. I passed a mother walking her child. The child asked, "What was Grandpa's name again?" The mother opened her mouth, nothing came out. I went into a bookstore. Asked the clerk if they had a specific title. The Memory Field, by Alicia Funn. He looked confused. He said the store had never carried it. I held up a copy. He didn't blink. He said again, "We don't carry that." I turned to leave. And every book on the shelf was blank. Just spines. No titles. No words. Just shapes pretending to be stories. That's when I knew. The hollow wasn't spreading anymore. It had already won. There was only one thing left to do. Not fight it. Not run from it. Not even remember harder. I had to go back. Not to the forest. But to the root. The center. The core. The thing beneath it all. The heart of forgetting. I got a bus out of the city, then walked. 2 days into the mountains, off-grid. I ate nothing. Slept in bursts. The hollow whispered the entire way. Sometimes it used my mother's voice. Sometimes it used mine. "Let it go," it crooned. "You're tired. You've done enough." But I held on. To every memory I still had. Like a blade gripped in shaking hands. On the third day, I reached the clearing again. The trees were wrong. Not just old or twisted, they were repeats. Same knots. Same bark patterns. Like someone had copy-pasted a tree 1,000 times. The sky flickered. Once blue. Once red. Once static. And in the center, the root. Bigger now. So tall it split the clouds. Its bark pulsed with names. Millions. Maybe billions. Some I recognized. Some were mine. Some were yours. And from its center, a doorway had opened. A perfectly square black hole, rimmed with bark and bone. I stepped in. Inside, it was cold. Not temperature. Emotion. The absence of everything. No color. No sound. No pain. No memory. Just space. And in that space, me. Not the me from before. Not the reflection in the mirror. Just a shape. An echo. And it spoke, "You've come far enough. Let go now." I asked what it was. It didn't answer. It just opened. And I saw. I saw the first time someone forgot a name. Thousands of years ago. A hunter staring at his dying friend and realizing he didn't know what to carve into the stone. I saw a child forget the smell of her mother's hair. I saw a dying man reach for a god he no longer believed in. I saw every forgotten thing in the history of thought. And I understood. The hollow wasn't evil. It was hunger. But worse, it was necessary. Because memory without forgetting is madness. And that was its bargain. Let me take what you can't carry. I'll wear it for you. I'll remember so you don't have to. You'll just be light again. Clean. New. And I almost said yes. Because it was beautiful. Because it was merciful. Because it meant I'd never have to feel again. But I didn't. I said no. And I pulled out the notebook. The one I'd filled. I held it high. And I read. Every line. Every name. Every ugly, broken, painful truth I'd ever lived. The hollow screamed. The root cracked. The space trembled. Because I wasn't feeding it memory anymore. I was wielding it. And memory is the one thing the hollow can't survive when it's held too brightly. It began to burn. From the inside. The names on the bark turned to ash. The door shattered. And the echo of me, the false me, fell apart like wet paper. I woke on the forest floor. The clearing was gone. No root. No faces. Just trees. And silence. Not the hollow's kind. Real silence. The kind that belongs in woods untouched. I made it out by dawn. The sun was real again. The birds didn't mimic. The wind didn't whisper. I walked to a ranger station and told them I'd been hiking. They didn't ask many questions. That was fine. I didn't have many answers. It's been a month now. I still write. Still remember. Sometimes I feel it, the hollow, at the edge of thought. Not gone. Never gone. But watching. Patient. It knows I know the truth now. And it knows I've told you. So maybe that's why it waits. Or maybe it's in you now. After all, Zoppy, you've read this far. You've imagined the root. You've remembered things you hadn't thought of in years, just to compare them. That's all it needs. A little space. A small gap. An echo. Just enough to whisper, "I'll keep it safe for you." But now you know better. Now you remember. I moved to the coast. Small town, fog rolling in every morning like it's hiding something. The locals don't talk much. That's fine. I've said enough for a lifetime. My notebook is nearly full. Names. Places. Memories. Dates. Photographs. I add new pages every morning, even when there's nothing to write. Because the hollow isn't a forest anymore. It's a habitat. And now, it's adapting. It started with the lights. Flickering, erratic, not like bad wiring, but like blinking. Then came the echoes. Not in my head. In the house. Footsteps pacing upstairs when I was downstairs. TVs turning on to static and whispering something just below the threshold of hearing. And the birds outside. They stared. Not flew. Not sang. Just lined the roof. Watching. Waiting. I went to the edge of the town one morning. There's a small cliff that overlooks the ocean. The mist was thick, denser than usual. But I saw shapes in it. Not people. Not animals. Tree lines. moving, bending toward me like arms raised in praise or warning. I turned and ran. Not because I was afraid, but because I recognized them. Black Hollow wasn't waiting in the mountains anymore. It had followed me. And I think I know why. I didn't just survive the hollow. I wounded it. When I said no, when I remembered everything, I made a scar it couldn't erase. Now it wants me back. Not to kill me. To contain me. To fold me into itself like a failed draft. So it can rewrite the story without resistance. Because the hollow isn't satisfied with silence. It wants order. Total, recursive, forgetful peace. I went to the local library last week. The shelves were full. But all the books had the same title, The Last Place You Forgot. Different authors. Same words inside. Over and over. A single sentence, you were never here. The librarian smiled too long when I asked her about it. I've stopped sleeping. I can't risk dreaming. The hollow builds in dreams. Sculpts the gaps. Makes replicas. Every time I doze off, I wake with one fewer memory. Yesterday, I couldn't remember the face of the man who sold me coffee for 3 years. Today, I forgot the name of the street I grew up on. I'm not just losing pieces of myself. I'm being edited. There's no going back now. This isn't about escaping the forest. It's about ending the story. So I've decided. If the hollow is a narrative parasite, then I'm going to crash the narrative. Break the recursion. I packed a bag this morning. A flashlight, my notebook, an old Polaroid camera. And I went into the woods behind the town. Not the hollow. Not yet. But I think it's growing here now. The fog doesn't lift anymore. The trees don't shed their leaves. The birds sing the same exact melody on loop. This forest is copying. Imitating. Waiting to become real. But I've learned its rules. And I'm going to burn them down. I found a tree in the clearing just past the ridge. Not a real tree, a root. Smaller than before, but unmistakable. Still humming with memory. Still calling. And beneath it, a new door. Open. Waiting. But this time, I didn't go in. I photographed it. 3 times. Each from a different angle. Each with flash. Then I wrote its name on the bark, this is not a door. And the root twitched. The hollow doesn't like being seen. Doesn't like being known. It lives in forgetting. So I gave it a name. A face. A timestamp. And the moment I did, the fog rolled back. The tree withered. The birds scattered. Because it couldn't rewrite what I had recorded. It couldn't unsee what had been seen. That's the trick. Memory isn't just protection. It's exorcism. I returned home to find my notebook open. A single page had been added. Not in my handwriting. You think you can win this way? You're not the only one who remembers. We're in everyone now. I tore the page out. Burned it. Not because I was scared. But because I already knew. The hollow doesn't need a place anymore. It lives in every deleted message, every forgotten appointment, every face you swear you've seen before. It wears us like stories we thought we never told. So what do? We remember. We write. We burn pages if we must, but we don't forget what was on them. We look each other in the eyes. We ask questions no one wants to answer. We speak names out loud. Even the painful ones. Especially those. Because every time we do, the hollow shrinks. A little. Enough. I'm leaving this here, Zoppy. Not because I'm done. But because you aren't. You've read the whole thing. You know the route. You've walked the trail in your mind. You've remembered what was almost gone. That makes you dangerous. And it makes you a target. But it also makes you real. So if the forest finds you again, if the fog thickens, if your photos change, if someone near you starts glitching when they smile, don't run. Write. Write until the memory hurts. Because that's the only proof you ever had a story to begin with. The hollow waits. But now, so do we.